Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another Sunday Roast. And we have a special guest with us this morning, Graham Hughes, and we are live, of course. So if you'd like to hit us with a super chat, we'll direct the question to our wonderful guest today, my co-host Alex. Before we get to Graham, Alex, can you tell us a little bit about yourself for people who are maybe unfamiliar with you?
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Sunday Roast. Alex, I'm also known as Political X. I run a YouTube channel. I'm an author and a historian. And my marvelous co-host, Max, can you introduce yourself?
My name is Max. I run the Robespierre channel, and I talk mainly about British politics and Brexit in particular. So we have a wonderful guest today, an old friend of the show as well. Graham, for people who are new to Graham, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, I'm the world's most travelled Scouser. I'm the only person to visit every country in the world without flying. I once won an island, a tropical island in the Caribbean, on a game show. I founded Global Scouts Day, and I fought Brexit and stopped it. One of the things isn't true, but the others are.
Can you guess which one?
No one can guess which one. My God.
Did you really win an island?
Yeah, tropical island. It's called Ginger Island, Jinja. You can stay there. It's an Airbnb. It's about 60 for an entire island. It's a good deal.
Wow. I missed that.
Well, I like to keep my powder dry.
Alex, I see something behind you. What is that behind you?
This. Or this. Or this. All hail the lava lamp, everyone. Yes, we are we are building a cult.
I see a lava lamp, but I think there should be like a bass guitar going bow, 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 bow. And everyone starts getting very, groovy. What can I say?
Yes, last week we were it was my place is now compared to a love pad from the 60s, Mike Myers-esque.
Excellent. Yes.
Yes, that's the image that every political show really wants to garner. Not professional, not with the coffee.
We're going back to the 70s in every other way, so we may as well bring back the lava lamp. I love it.
Wow,
Nico, thank you so much for that super sticker. We have a cool super sticker from Nico. Thank you so much. So, Alex, can you tell us what the agenda is for today?
I think everyone guesses where this is going, especially as there was no match of the day this morning. There were just clips of frankly, like one of the flagship programs, one of the greatest programs that has ever come out of the BBC, and they've produced a lot of really good stuff and content. Yeah, match of the day. It's temporary destruction. We could talk about that. We could talk about Gary Lineker's tweet. There's so much to unpack. We could talk about Suella Braverman or Cruella Braverman, which seems to be trending quite a bit on YouTube at the moment.
Did you see Russ in Cheshire's? Did you see Russ in Cheshire's comment on that?
No.
Suella Braverman is what happens when you feed Priti Patel after midnight. We've lost him. Alex is gone. He's gone.
I just think of those ears.
Oh, Conservator with a super chat. Good morning, Max, Alex, and Graham. All hail the lava lamp.
Hello.
Thank you so much.
Conservator. Good to see you.
Yes, you. That's amazing.
I love.
They do. There are. She is bigger as well. When they go from the Mogwai to the Gremlin gets bigger and stronger.
I'm more evil.
I'm more evil.
Don't get them wet.
Wow. Okay. No. Well, that's a great way to start the show. Thank you, Graham.
So can we explain? I think we have some international viewers. So can Graham? Can you explain what happened with Gary Lineker?
So there's a very famous ex-footballer who used to play for Leicester and Everton here in Liverpool, and he is now a sports broadcaster on TV. He is one of our national treasures. Like, everyone loves Gary Lineker. He never got a red card in an entire playing career. He won the Golden Boot for scoring the most goals in Mexico in 1986. And he basically went on Twitter this week and, in his personal capacity as a private citizen and a contractor for the BBC, And he said that that the news led to him getting dumped by the BBC for presenting it's being suspended while they're investigating. And this led to a wonderful I'm Spartacus moment in which every single sports presenter on the BBC said, "Sod this for a game of soldiers. I stand with Gary. I'm not going to come into work this weekend." And it meant that the BBC's flagship football shows like Football Focus and Match of the Day either didn't go ahead and were replaced by Bargain Hunt, or they went ahead without any commentary. So you didn't really know what was happening unless you're really, really into football.
Wow, that is quite a summary. I'm gonna read out the tweet so everyone can actually hear it in case you haven't read it. But there is no huge influx. So Gary Lineker has 8 million followers on Twitter, doesn't he? Plus everything else. So there's no huge influx. We take far fewer refugees than other major European countries. This is just an immeasurable, cruel policy directed at the most vulnerable people in language that is not dissimilar to that used by Germany in the 30s. And I'm out of order. So, I mean, it's been interesting listening to people talk about this. It's been interesting seeing somewhat of a split within the Holocaust community. Some people that experienced it. Some people going, he's absolutely right. We saw Suella Braverman get lambasted by, she'd survived the Holocaust, 34 at the time, but she survived.
And I think the Board of Deputies of British Jews also objected to her rhetoric because it was reminiscent of what the Nazis were saying. I mean, it didn't start with the concentration camps. It didn't start with gas chambers. It started with the rhetoric, othering, blaming everything, and that's happening in Britain at the moment. So your cost of living crisis, the fact that there's not enough tomatoes on the shelf, all these problems are all caused by the little boats coming over. And I was in the pub in Hyde on Friday night, and there was a guy in there genuinely thought that all our problems at the moment were caused by not the billionaires stealing money from us, not paying tax and being put into a VIP lane. No, the problems were all caused by this few thousand people coming across in small boats. Something that didn't happen before 2018. It's almost as though the Tories have manufactured a problem and then are offering to solve the problem in a way that's not actually going to solve the problem.
It works to their base, doesn't it? That's the thing. Yeah. It works to their base, and that's what they're aiming for. They don't care about us. They don't care about the country. They only care about the base. And, I mean, we're going to plug a few of our friends that have been on the show. Zoe Gardner has been out there absolutely destroying it in terms of elders rhetoric, but also Terry Christian. Yeah, he was great on Good Morning Britain the other day, but Zoe's been just pointing out, and she went against Julia Hartless-Brewer, who was basically defending the position, saying, "Look, there aren't enough houses for the general population, so why should we be giving to anyone else?" And it's like, well, if you look back at our housing problem actually goes all the way back to 1947 with things called the Country Act, the Country and Housing Act, which then puts limitations on construction. So we used to construct at 2.7% until 1947. That then dropped and never recovered. We're 4 million houses short, and we need to be producing about 500,000 a year to catch up. At the moment, the government's target is 300,000, and I doubt it's going to even hit 200 a year.
Well, so let's take that argument. Let's take that argument all the way. We don't have enough houses. Well, ban second houses.
But also the right to buy created a huge problem because people were given the right to buy under Thatcher, and then there was no social housing built to replace the ones that were bought up. So they say, okay, you can buy your council house, but then they didn't actually build any more social housing after that. So this is a problem that has been going back decades. Can I just Freckle Punny sent us a super chat. Thanks so much for that. If Lineker can be dismissed, the BBC needs to look at Sugar, Brady, and others for their political opinions and positions. Yeah, and for example, Andrew Neil, the head of who runs the Spectator right-wing magazine, he hasn't been criticised. Jeremy Clarkson, for example, works or still used to work anyway for the BBC.
He worked for the BBC, yeah. He punched up a
but he was never held to account for some of the things he said. Really, really horrible stuff.
He wanted all the strikers to be taken outside and shot in front of their families. And then Lord Sugar had a picture of Jeremy Corbyn with Adolf Hitler in the car.
Yeah, I saw that.
Driving through. And you're like, it's obviously that they don't like Gary. And they don't realise that the population loves Gary.
But they changed the guidelines. So the guidelines used to state, as you said earlier, that if you were a sports presenter, you could put political stuff because it wasn't your area. But Andrew Neil, I mean, oh my God, he was the presenter of the BBC's flagship politics program, while at the same time being the editor of, not just contributing articles to, being the editor of The Spectator magazine, which is the most right-wing magazine in the United Kingdom, next to the Beano. Just does look, but no. So they've changed the guidelines under Tim Arsehole. What's his name? What's the
Davey?
Tim, ex-Tory councillor, wasn't he? Contributor to the Tory party. He got in 2020 and changed the guidelines now to say that if you're a high-profile person on the BBC, you shouldn't be putting stuff on about politics on Twitter.
I'm going to play a bit of devil's advocate because I did a lot of research into the Qatar World Cup, and Gary Lineker and Gary Neville both went to it, and the only person that just held them to rights over that was Ian Hislop. That's the only person I know that held them to rights over it, and there is a hypocrisy there because you're playing tombstones for goalposts. Like they're literally it wouldn't surprise me if they're dead bodies underneath the stadium. It really wouldn't.
6,000 people died to make that happen. 6,000 slaves. Sorry, I said people. I meant slaves because they were actually brought over there under duress and lied to, and then had their taken off them. To work in 50-degree heat in the desert to build those pointless stadiums. 8 of them that they're never going to use again. They said they're going to put them somewhere else. I doubt they'll do that. They just put them there, pull them down.
I don't get why you can't have that level of consistency. I appreciate it's difficult if Gary's been playing football his life. It seems to be the thing that got him through school.
I remember at the time when they were talking about whether he should boycott it or not, there were people on the right saying, "Oh, what a snowflake! Why doesn't he just? He should just go. We can't be cancelling all these things." And then these were the same people who were saying you shouldn't bring politics into football.
He
did read a statement criticising the Qatari government and FIFA for giving the tournament to Qatar, which they never should have done. Obviously, it's massively corrupt rivalry. People have gone to jail over the corruption that went on in FIFA. But also, his excuse was he was telling people who are football fans who might not be on Twitter, might not be following him, might not follow politics, what the situation was in Qatar. So that was his justification, and Gary Neville's as well, which I get. But at the same time, I boycotted the World Cup. I didn't watch any of it. For me, it was too gruesome. And I was actually in Qatar in 2010, and it wasn't long afterwards that they actually won the World Cup. I couldn't believe it. I was like, something's gone horribly wrong. And interestingly, I wrote a blog article in December 2010, just as this announcement came through, predicting everything that happened. And then someone on Twitter, some right-wing pundit, said, if you weren't complaining about this in 2010, you shouldn't be complaining about it now. And I was like, link.
Owned. But to defend Gary Lineker here, he's based in the UK. So his point of view would be there's nothing I can do about Qatar. The Qatari government has decided. If I have pressure in the UK, if I can apply pressure in the UK, then it makes sense. If I was living in Qatar and Qatar was somewhat of a democracy, then I would be probably doing that there. I just want to bring in Nico has sent us a super chat. Thanks so much, Nico. Braverman's husband's parents were Jewish. It seems. That's a bit like saying, I can't be racist because I have black friends.
Also, it doesn't say her husband is Jewish, so I'm guessing that I don't understand how that works. Surely, if his parents are Jewish, then he's Jewish as well.
Yeah, but also
it's one of those. We have some Jewish ancestry, so it's okay to be racist.
Yeah,
but isn't it also? This is the conflation. Isn't it also possible to become Jewish through the religion and joining the religion?
Yeah,
like,
people like
have done that.
you can
with
be
no
very difficult to join Judaism.
Well, you can,
it is. The other thing that I'd bring up with all of that as well is that bigger picture that we've been looking at, but we might not want to move on to that quite yet, because Gary, in what he's been saying, has caused a furore. I mean, should the government be interfering with the BBC? Sounds like 56 MPs have been writing in, demanding and putting pressure on them. Yeah, it's Richard Sharp, isn't it? Who got the 800 million loan, and they said
chair of the BBC. And he's not been suspended while they invested. There's 2 separate investigations into that loan to Boris Johnson, which he denies that he was involved in any way. So if he's found to have lied about that, then his job should be over. I mean, it's simple as that. Isn't it weird, though, that, not weird, but isn't it interesting that anyone who goes anywhere near Boris Johnson is just tainted for life? That's it. Do you know what I mean? He's like the Midas touch, isn't he? But it's not. Can I swear?
Yeah, of course.
Instead of turning things into gold, he turns things into shit. Everything he touches.
Would that include the Tory party? Because I'd like to...
Yes. Yeah, that's why it's such a mess.
You put a liar and a charlatan in charge. What do you expect is going to happen?
Yeah. You look at his decision to, after having dinner with the son of a Russian KGB agent, to get Britain out of the EU, as was, asked for in the Foundations of Geopolitics by Alexander Dugin in 1997. A text so beloved by the Russians, they put it on the school curriculum for children to read. And one of the things it said is separate Britain from Europe.
My God.
If you look at that, it's like that was the moment when Johnsonism sort of took over the Tory party. And since then, it's just got worse and worse and worse. And we're still wondering when they're going to get to the scraping the bottom of the barrel, scraped away the floor. I think they're quite close to the core of the air by now. They're scraping. And it's just like, where does this end? What's...
Isn't it more... I'm gonna go back to Gary a bit here and go, how many packets of crisps are you going to eat if Gary somehow tears down the government?
All of them. I'm buying Walker's factory. I'm just going to sit at the end with my mouth open with crisps going in my mouth.
I mean, he had
Think
that
of the
little
parties.
He had a little feud with Michael Owen, who is another famous English footballer of his generation. And Michael Owen was always trying to be the sort of... It was a joke, but Michael Owen was trying to be the new face of Walkers, and Gary kept tripping him up and getting rid of him, and Gary stayed, and Michael Owen disappeared. Is this what has happened again with the Tory party? That actually Gary Lineker is more evil than we realised.
I like that. Yeah, possibly.
Can I just bring in another super chat from Alistair? Thanks so much, Alistair Kerr. Look, Squirrel, that tweet while Tories screw you over. Yeah, so is this a bit of a distraction from what's really happening?
Completely. It's a complete distraction. Yeah.
But it's dominated the headlines of the newspapers the last 5 days.
But that's all the 1930s was. Franco, Mussolini, and Hitler all were going, it's their fault. Did anyone watch the Arnold Schwarzenegger speech? He literally visited Auschwitz, and he made an awesome speech in which he was discussing the effects of both his father having gone through World War II, but also through his visit to Auschwitz, having met a Holocaust survivor. But one of the things he said was actually that the video that he was making when he was making this sort of monologue to the camera wasn't to those that had already been converted. He was actually talking to those who were using other people's flaws as the main issue and not actually concentrating on themselves, which I felt was so connected to what the Tory government have done. They've caused all of our problems for the last 13 years and take no responsibility for it, and then just find something that their base will move to and talk about and focus on that. And one of the things he said was that they're essentially weak. That's why they do it. And it's so true. If you look at what they're actually doing, nothing's working. Is the NHS working?
No. Well, their propaganda is, according to the guy I was talking to in the pub, he was absolutely convinced that all the problems in his life, he His dog died. His wife left him. He can no longer get an erection. It's all the fault of the boat people. The boat people have ruined his life. And I was like, are there any boat people? We were in a pub, and literally everyone in the pub was white. And I was like, where are they? Where are they ruining your life? We give them homes. We put them up in. I said, that's because they don't actually deal with them properly, and they don't let asylum seekers work mostly while their claim is being processed. Every other country in the world, the US allows asylum seekers to work because otherwise it's just costing the state money, and they might not be able to stay anyway. So you may as well let them work if it's going to be for 6 months, a year while you process their claim. It's just bonkers. And now we're spending £500 million. Oh my God, how many hospitals could you build for that? At least 5. And like, they spend this to a processing centre in Calais. All they need is a freaking website. They just need a website. They just need a website that you can log on, you're an asylum seeker, or you go to an embassy or someone that can help you. Citizens Advice Bureau in Nairobi, and you can type in, I'd like to become a refugee in the UK, and they can go through your claim, and then they can fly you over. It'd be cheaper than what we're doing now.
I'll add on to that and say that there have been a number of Holocaust survivors who've come out and said, if that policy was around in the 1930s, we wouldn't have been able to escape Europe or Germany.
That's the thing. It was there. That's why you had the kids transport. We talk about the kids transport as this wonderful thing. And Nicholas Winton, and you know what he did was amazing. But the fact was, it was children ripped apart from their parents who were sent off to die. So we orphaned an entire generation of children because we didn't want to let Jews into the country.
The Daily Mail in the 1930s was saying very similar things to what it's saying today, complaining about immigration and particularly targeting specific minority groups. And you can read the articles and go back and look in the 1930s. They're literally saying the exact same things, but they're targeting those who are refugees from Europe and Germany. So you're going, I mean, history repeats. We've been saying this for about 3 weeks now. You can go back to the Victorian period and you go, well, they used to dump raw sewage in, but the Victorians stopped that. They used to give out free school. They didn't used to give out free school meals. People were starving, so the Liberal government came in and gave out free school meals and ramped it up quite quickly. And you're going, we're taking that all away, and it's like you've learned nothing. And it's this extremist neoliberalism where they think that the market is essentially some form of God, and it will solve all problems. And it doesn't. All it does is allow a few people to accumulate a lot of wealth, which they then use to influence the political system to then solidify their wealth. That's whatever seems to happen. I mean,
become even more wealthy.
Yeah, of course. Why wouldn't you?
And then what do you do?
Wealth. So the wealthy in the last few years has just been off the scale. We've never had such a huge transfer of wealth. When you think about the transfer that we're having at the moment through our energy bills, it is just absolutely disgraceful. And the government are like, it's okay, we're going to give a tiny little subsidy out of our money, so we're paying tax, and then that's going to the energy companies, and then and the fossil fuel companies, and then we're paying for them straight out, and they're raising the cap. So this month, next month, the energy bills are going to go up for everyone again, and you know people are at the wits' end, and yet, the Tory party are incredibly successful at making people think, you know, it's someone else. Someone put in the comments, "Look, it's a squirrel," and it's exactly right.
Have you? I know, Graham, you can't see the comments, but Sean has just smashed it by going, did the refugees cost $37 billion? Like, trusted. I'm like, there you go. Yeah. This is the joy of YouTube. Like, people are giving out great points. We
are reading the comments.
We're getting a bit ahead, so I just want to read out another one that was in the list from Fearless Wolf. Thanks so much, Fearless Wolf. Everyone has the right to freedom of expression. Nice. The right shall include freedom to hold opinions. UK Human Rights Act 1998. So why the uproar?
Yeah, I can debate that. I don't like to debate it because I like freedom of speech, but I can debate it. So they had free speech. They had some of the most significant free speech laws in Weimar Germany. They also had significant anti-racist laws in Weimar Germany. And you'll hear both sides of this argument when you listen to commentators and historians on TV saying, oh, you know, like they had free speech and that was the cause of allowing Adolf Hitler to come in, because essentially you could say whatever you wanted. And this is the issue that this is the conflation I have with free speech. I love the idea. I'm concerned about the practicalities of it. And what you'll generally hear people say is, yeah, but if you have the idea spread out, Terry Christian brought this up. If you have the idea spread out, people can then debate it, and it doesn't go underground, and so those ideas don't come to the forefront at a later date and spread in the underground. And I get that, and I get the idea that you're able to debate. But then I could say, well, they had that with Adolf Hitler. They allowed him to go out and say what he wanted. But they also, the counterpart that you normally have from some historians is, but they had the legislation. It didn't stop it, did it? Didn't stop him from going around and saying all of this stuff. Well, interestingly, two problems with that law. One, it wasn't enforced. And two, a lot of the judges were still left over from the previous government, which was a monarchy. And it was led by a guy called Kaiser Wilhelm. Now, that meant that Hitler got very light sentences, was allowed to sort of do a monologue at the end of his arrest. And his arrest was down to a coup attempt in Munich. And you're going, right, so if it's not enforced and the judges are given leniency, how is that stopping it? And that's my conflation. It's like, if you allow free speech, you allow very dangerous ideas to come to the forefront, and it can actually be very difficult to stop it. So we could maybe even argue things like Brexit being very dangerous seems to have smashed everyone, and it seems to have been built on a complete falsehood, and yet no accountability has been taken. When we look at the other extremist ideas that have taken place in history, they can come to the forefront. You can have people saying, I'm a god, and people can start to believe it. We've seen that with a number of cults in the past. And we can have people pushing forward ideas, and if they're very good at being able to do a monologue or they're very good in debate, they can put themselves in a position to be able to say, actually, we think we are a superior race, or we are superior in general, or these people coming over will have a negative impact. And unless you've got someone of equal ability or greater ability, the public can be pushed in that way. The other problem is the media system in the UK, if it can garner itself in a certain direction if it wants to, and it can push the public in that direction. And the one example I always give is that whoever the Sun has backed since Tony Blair has become Prime Minister. Is that a coincidence or is that a consequence? Sorry, my monologue's done. I hope I'm...
Just before we bring in Graham, we have a lot of super chats, so thanks guys for the support. FSM is the dog says they didn't care when Gary said bin Corbyn. So I think that was back in 2019, was it? Or 2017, I'm not sure. So Gary Lineker had said...
he said it didn't seem very popular. I don't think he actually said bin, but yeah, paraphrasing.
So there's
stand by that.
Okay. Alex, do you want to say anything about that?
It's obviously two-faced, isn't it? Like you've got to have but the other problem is that it's Tim Davie that's coming, isn't it? And obviously he's now saying that they've had to tighten the rules, and his argument is that because Gary is so prolific and so associated with the BBC, that causes a consequence to us. That's his argument. And you may have some validation like that, but then you brought up Andrew Neil. Did you know that he wore a tie showing one of the right-wing think tanks, the neoliberal think tanks, during one of his politics programs?
Tufton Street. If you
I can't remember which one.
Streets, these are the vermin you will meet. Yeah, bloody hell. Honestly, and they still had on after the Institute for Economic Affairs. It's one of these bullshit, mysteriously funded think tanks in 55 Tufton Street. After they advised Kwasi Kwarteng and this trust to destroy the British economy to the tune of almost £40 billion, they were still being invited on the BBC to opine about things.
Did anyone see Alistair Campbell invited on to the BBC just a few days ago? And when he was invited on, I did a video on it. The journalist, the reporter, started off by saying, Alistair Campbell works for this podcast that is owned by a company by Gary Lineker. And Alistair Campbell responded by saying, yeah, okay, that's true, but why don't you open your statement every day with, the chairman of the BBC donated to the Conservative Party and helped Boris Johnson get an £800,000 loan. And then the journalist
Yes.
was like, okay, moving swiftly on.
Yeah, it was beautiful. It was beautiful.
I've got something that can top that as well, which is horrible. Virginia Giuffre is the young lady that had the horrendous experiences with Maxwell and Epstein. And during the proceedings of the court case against Maxwell, the BBC decided it needed legal representation from America to sort of explain what was going on and taking place over there, sort of an authority. Now, interestingly, they picked Alan Dershowitz, who Virginia Giuffre was also suing.
Also
and claiming, and they just introduced him as an American lawyer.
Yeah.
They didn't give any context as to who he was or what he did, or that he was actually, and then allowed him to literally slight and attack Virginia Giuffre for about a 5 to 8 minute piece. And you're going, wait a minute, how are you? I mean, the thing I love about the BBC is that it's meant to be impartial. So in theory, it should cock up on both ends. And both the left and the right should be annoyed with it, which means that actually it's in perfect balance.
And it's like here talk about the crimes of the emperor. It's Darth Vader, and you're like, what? But yeah, let's just talk about free speech for a moment, because they don't mean free speech. They never do. What they mean is they want to be able to say what they like without any consequences. And it's really interesting that Gary Lineker has now faced consequences for what he said. And the usual people who are going on about free speech all the time, they've gone very quiet all of a sudden. And you're like, well, it's just your free speech, isn't it? It's no one else's free speech. But there's a couple of things in this. First of all, we don't have a written constitution. We don't have a right to free speech. Even in America, they don't have a right to free speech. What it is that free speech will not be infringed by the government. So the government can't stop saying whatever you want. But that doesn't mean it's free from consequence. And in the same way that people go, you should be able to write whatever you like on Twitter. You should be able to write what you like on 4chan and Reddit and TikTok, put whatever you like on TikTok. And it's like, no, they're private institutions, and they can have a door policy on who's allowed in and allowed to speak. Otherwise, we'd have a system where I could write a 2,000-word essay on how much of a knobhead my neighbor is and demand to go into their living room and read it out in front of their family. And when we go, hang on, what? This is my private home. You can't come here and do that. I'll say, oh, free speech. I'm allowed to do free speech. And they'll be like, you're double wrong. Because first of all, we don't have a constitution. And secondly, that's only in America. I would say 3 things. I hate people who are bad at maths. And the third one is like, even if, that was the case, then you would still face the consequences of what you say. And I'm sure if I went round to my neighbours and called them a knobhead in front of their family, they'll probably chin me. And I'll probably just deserve it. What can I say?
I'm going to make a correction. We don't have a codified constitution, because I know that'll come up otherwise. Is it written? It's written and but it's not protected, which means that it's codified. Yeah. So, I mean, one of the things I would love to see is the House of Lords gone and replaced with a proportional system. So you've got every vote counts, and then it's proportionated in the Lords, and it's as it is in the Commons. But bills have to go through both houses at the same time. And the reason I would recommend that is because then you can start implementing a codified constitution, because not one chamber has all the power. And it means that both chambers have to agree if you change anything in the constitution. That would be and I want a constitution because I want our rights protected. And if we leave the ECHR, we'll have butt kiss. I think, is that correct American term?
I want a mix of that, Al, with just a little bit of a different thing there. So if you look at the football board, is it the football board who decide the rules of football around the world, right? And you've got 5 seats. You've got England.
It's a combination. It's a combination of FIFA, and it's a combination. I think the
England, Wales, Scotland, and Ireland.
have a veto. Yeah, I think they've got a veto. Yeah.
They can't do anything unless all of the constituent parts of the UK want to do it. I think this is really important, because otherwise you're going to have, with the population of England, 55 million, you're going to have the tyranny of the majority, and whatever England wants to do, say Brexit, is going to be forced on people in Scotland and people in Northern Ireland, and possibly Wales if they don't go along with it. So I think there needs to be an additional check there to ensure that England can't just decide what's best for all four sort of home nations.
Can I bring in another super chat from Alec? Thanks so much, Alec. As the BBC is a public broadcaster, surely it should defend the Constitution. But as we said, the Constitution isn't codified, so it's difficult to defend something that we don't really understand. We also have a super sticker from Tilly. Thanks so much, Tilly. Tilly was a guest on an interview I did. We also have one from Night Raven. Thanks so much, Night Raven. And then Alistair, we have voter ID gerrymandering. It's like the Tories don't want you to vote, plebs. We also have Diego. Diego, thanks so much, Diego. Tory seems to be a mess. Very sorry about that. Hope I haven't missed anyone's super chat. Yeah, go ahead.
There's also complaints that Gary Lineker, and this was where, a previous guest of ours, Terry Christian, was on Good Morning Britain. And there was a guest on there saying that two things. That one, that Gary was privileged. It's like, I'm pretty sure Gary was working class, wasn't he? And then managed to use his talent to make a lot of money, which a lot of other people made a lot of money from, probably even more than Gary during that period. And then on top of that, she said, he shouldn't have a right to say anything. And I'm going, well, he pays taxes, right? So he's entitled to everything. I don't see. I think everyone who's born here should be entitled, regardless.
But can I just say, but when Gary, it's very important that we differentiate what Gary Lineker says when he's working for the BBC and what he says on Twitter, because if people say, okay, he shouldn't say that on Twitter, then where should he say it? Like, where is he allowed to express his opinion? Is he not allowed to express his opinions? Like, if he's ours now. No, but for example, if we are in a cafe and Gary Lineker sitting across the table from me and he's talking about politics, should I be able to stand up and say, you work for the BBC, you're not allowed to say that in this cafe? Like, at what point? I'd love to ask these people. You say Gary Lineker shouldn't be saying these things. Well, where can he? Is it just in his private home? Would you like the state to come and tell you you're not allowed to say something in public? You can't be walking in the park and express an opinion because somebody might hear it and be offended by it.
That's really weird. That does not happen very often.
No.
I was about to say, it's shit anyway.
I'm Donald Trump, and I don't endorse this video. You should not subscribe or like the Sunday Roast. Every time you like and subscribe, a little bit of my soul disappears.
Graham, you were talking about another national treasure and how they disappeared. Yeah, we've still we're going to carry on for 20 minutes. Darn those Russians! All hail the lamp. Graham, the lamp is all powerful and will not be silenced. Graham.
So David Attenborough, national treasure, 96 years old. And he's made hundreds of programs for the BBC over the years, literally hundreds of programs. It opened people's eyes to the natural world, amazing environmentalist. And he's just made a show with about, I think, 6 episodes about natural history. And one of the episodes concerns the destruction of habitats and the loss of biodiversity in the United Kingdom. And talks about rewilding, which is a very popular idea on the left, and a hated idea along onshore wind farms and being a decent person on the right. And balance. So what they've done is one episode on iPlayer, and they're not going to show it on the BBC for fear of upsetting right-wingers, the snowflakes.
So I've only caught a little bit. I think, Max, you only caught a little bit of what it is in the programme. Is it something to do with environmentalism and Brexit, or...?
No, I don't know what's in it.
Are you aware, Graham?
It's pretty. I haven't watched it yet, but apparently it just talks about how much damage we've done to the environment in this country in Attenborough's lifetime. But also it talks about suggested ways of getting the wildlife back, and one of the big ones is rewilding. It's just letting nature take its course rather than everything being built on or crops being put on it, or sheep being put on it, which is every square inch of the United Kingdom, it seems like something's being done with the land. What the report said on BBC, I think it was, basically said it was for fear of upsetting the right. You know, it was like, because these ideas are quite unpopular.
But it's a bit like and I just want to say thanks to Ruth towards the Lecky bill. Thanks so much for that. But it's a bit like, you know, what some of the Tory MPs were saying in the House of Commons when it came to Winston Churchill, saying we need to strip away any criticism of Winston Churchill and teach children at school that he was a wonderful individual. Only positive things about the empire. And this seems something similar. Yeah, when we're talking about the environment, we can mention some things, but don't mention anything about fixing these things, because this would require, you know, a shift to public transport, and we don't want to talk about that. This would require less road building. We don't want to talk about that. This would require, you know, retrofitting houses. How's that going to be paid for? That's actually going to help ordinary people. We don't want to talk about that. So I think either Graham is drinking a lot or he has frozen.
I've frozen. I don't know what's happened. I don't know what's happened there. Sorry, give me a second. I'll try and get myself back in.
Russian gremlins today.
One of those. I love the fact that I'm talking well.
A man of many talents.
you made it, don't you, Max? When all the odds are against you, and but I mean, luckily for us, we've still got loads of people tuning in and going, "No, we defend you. We will not be silent." Wow, I love it. This is what they say, isn't it? Don't work with animals and don't do live TV.
Yeah, children and animals, and I'm both, so you know. That's what happens, mate. You bring me on the show, it's just chaos ensues, obviously. Shit. But yeah.
Well, we are all quite bearded.
I was talking with a friend of mine yesterday, who's part Moroccan, about the British Empire. And I said, you know, it pisses me off as someone who's quite well travelled and, you know, studied history at university. Just how a lot of people, when you mention the British Empire, we're talking like OBEs, and we should change the name to be called the British Excellence rather than the British Empire. I get these like warm and fuzzy feelings about the empire, and it's so wrong. I want people, when you talk about the empire, I want them to cringe. I want it to be like talking to a German person about the Nazis, because we were that bad. And let's make no bones about it. I mean, you know, talk about the accounts or whatever. The Nazis charged for what, a couple of decades, if that, whereas the British Empire was in charge of a place like India for like 300 years. Just trashed the place. We absolutely trashed the place. When we went into India under Elizabeth I, it was one of the richest countries in the world. When we left in the 40s, it was one of the poorest. And I've got home with some history homework, and they were saying, oh, you know, it wasn't all bad because we gave them democracy and bureaucracy and railways. And I said, oh, does Japan have democracy? And she's like, yeah. I said, does Japan have railways? She's like, yeah. Did we ever colonize Japan? Was it ever colonized? No, it wasn't. How is that even an excuse for like what we did, which was horrific? And now we're talking about refugees. A lot of the refugees that are coming from countries that we damaged beyond repair and then pulled out and then went, all right, you're on your own now. Left countries with no university graduates. In Jamaica, when we pulled out of Jamaica, only 1% of the black children had gone to school, whereas with the white children, it was 99%. They all came back to the UK. I mean, it was just...
Oh, we lost your audio again. Okay.
Oh.
No, we have you back again, sorry.
All right. There's a great book by James Felton called 52 Times Britain Was a Bell End, and it's well worth a read. Honestly, the things that we did in the past...
But if you compare it to other countries who had empires, a lot of them are like, we're sorry for what we did. But... you know, what was it? David Cameron said something like, yeah, we're sorry about something, but we were not going to go into too much detail about that. Helen,
came from a long line of slave owners.
Yeah, that ended just in 2015. Helen, thanks so much for that super chat. After Lineker and Sir David, the BBC only have to insult Dame Judy, and they'll have the national treasure trifecta.
I like that.
We're the only country I know of that were connected to or proceeded with being on 2 continents and having 90% of the population wiped out. We're the only one. We are the biggest drug dealer in history with opium to China. Bigger than...
Destroyed the Summer Palace in revenge. Basically, we burnt down Buckingham Palace because of our crack. Sorry, smack.
No, it's fine. These things are to be quite annoyed about. We enforce religion upon different groups from several continents against their will, kidnapping children and enforcing our religion upon them. I don't know many other cultures that have done that in their history. And then we are suggesting that we're benevolent, and that's on at least 3 continents: Asia, Australia, and North America. And I appreciate America is 1 continent. We've also, yes, you were right about India. The GDP has only just recovered. Their GDP production has only just recovered to the level that it was before we turned up. But obviously, I think India's a little bit more complicated than that. But when they do talk about the railway system, you can go, if you look at the railway system, it's only to natural resources. We weren't exactly like connecting the country for the benefit of holidays or general travel or allowing people to meet with families or make their lives easier. It was to extract resources. We even set it up in a system where we used their gold to give them back paper, which we then took gold out of the country, and the paper being money, which I believe was rupees at the time. So essentially we had an exchange system where we took their gold in exchange for a paper, which, I mean, is unreal. And then the gold was then extracted and taken back to the UK, which, I mean, this is part of the reason why we had the banking industry. We also had the slave trade, which is pretty much which is a significant reason as to why we had the Industrial Revolution, but also our banking system, which we started today. Go ahead, Graham.
I'm sure that Max will tell you the Irish population still hasn't recovered from the famine of the 1840s, which was exacerbated by the British. Massively.
Yeah. The population before the famine was 9 million. Now it's 7 million.
Still hasn't recovered. You think about all the jokes people tell about Catholics having lots of children, and you're like, Ireland, what?
Well, we've heard about Stanley Johnson wanting to, and I mean, this is something else. Stanley Johnson wants he's going to get a knighthood, and Gary Lineker's the one that's being lambasted. Stanley Johnson's on the record talking about population reduction. He then complains that people from foreign climes are having too many kids. And then no one's pointed out the fact that not only has he said that, but he's had between 4 and 6 children.
And Boris Johnson between somewhere between 5 and the power
7 and 20
and to the power of 27. I don't know.
Also, just for the record, since it's happened on Question Time, we want to say that Stanley Johnson is a wife beater. We know for a fact, and it wasn't a one-off.
It was a one-off.
Wife. Even if it was a one-off, you know what? Invading Poland was only a one-off, said Hitler. Do you know what I mean? Like, what? How is that even? I only murdered one person. I mean, it was a one-off. But he hit her so hard that she ended up in hospital on a recorded occasion that everyone has agreed that actually happened. So for that monster to be made a Knight of the Realm, while Gary Lineker and Sir David Attenborough are being cancelled by the BBC, and we took being a bit like the 1930s in Germany, and Lineker was on the money. Never do a fella for being right. And he's absolutely on the money.
But just about this thing of admiration for real scumbags. Like, for example, Stanley Johnson admired, he needs to be made a knight. Boris Johnson himself, like, for me, the very first time I heard about Boris Johnson was when he allegedly, and I think it's true, he burnt a £50 note in front of a homeless person in order to get into the Bullington Club, was it?
That's rumour. That was an initiation process.
Yeah.
For getting to the Burlington Club. Just saying that so we don't get sued.
Okay. If it's true, which I would imagine it is, what does that tell you about somebody like that? Like,
it's a class system again, isn't it? You're on the street because of your own failures, and I'm above you, because of my own successes. And it doesn't take into, and this is where privilege does come in, and people don't take it into account. It's self-awareness, essentially, of how people have gotten to the position that they're in. And a large amount of that is down to luck. I hate to say it, you can work hard and that'll increase your chances of luck, but still it's down to luck. There are a lot of things in your life you have zero control of.
I hate that expression, hard work, especially when rich people say it. Bullshit. They haven't worked down a mine. They've not worked in the factory. They've not been out catching fish at 5 o'clock in the morning in storm conditions. No, some conversations. Literally, they've had conversations, and maybe they've asked someone else to write an email for them, and they call that work. That's not work to me. This isn't work. Do you know what I mean? If we were getting paid £1 million for doing this, I'd be laughing. I'd be like, that's ridiculous. I'd be quite happy, but I wouldn't call it hard work. I wouldn't say hard working person, because compared with most of the people out there who actually work hard, the people who keep our system going, the railway workers out on the lines in the snow, fixing the points so the trains can go.
NHS staff in A&E, for example.
Yeah, and, oh my God, yeah, exactly. So that, but you always notice the Tories never use the word poor. They never use it, and Labour do, and Labour should stop using the word poor, because no one sees themselves as poor. Tories will always use hard-working families, because everyone is a hard-working family.
I'll just throw a hypothetical out there, just because we're almost at the end. If you jumped in a taxi almost anywhere in the world, and you used the right language, and you said to that taxi driver, take me to a working-class neighbourhood, what would that working-class neighbourhood generally look like? What is the first thing that pops into your head when you think? And this is interesting, because you would think that the working class, the ones that work, might well be in the richest neighborhoods. But if you said, take me to a working class neighborhood, what do you think you'd be taken to?
The shittest part of town, usually where the bus station is.
I'm
aware
of the time as well. Max, any thoughts on what I've said?
No, exactly the same. It's the poorest part of town. That's where. But
it's called the working area.
Yeah.
Where
the irony.
Isn't that interesting? I'm just gonna say one more thing, because we've got 3 minutes and it hasn't come up, and I haven't seen it in the mainstream media. If you have the misfortune of reading Mein Kampf, and as a historian I have, you will see within that text Hitler saying the word swarm, the word plague, the word invasion, and it is generally used to describe foreigners. They're invading, is what he says. They're invading. And he uses the word swarm and plague to describe both foreigners and parts of the Jewish population. And you're going, right, why is that not reusing that language? How is Suella Braverman not being held to account there? How has everyone missed this when it's considered, is one of the most sold books in the world? And
just a couple of minutes from where I am now in Liverpool, there was a riot last month, in which a police car got set on fire, and they had placards, and the language used on the placards was the same language that Suella Braverman used.
It begs the question, how, everyone keeps saying they're not using language. It's literally in one of the most read books, horrible books in the world, by one of the most horrible people that's ever existed on this planet. And yet people are going, no, it's not the same language. And I've not heard anyone in the mainstream
Can I just say something? Sarcasm, so that I'm not taken out of context here. Maybe he was a concerned citizen, like all these concerned citizens that you see standing outside a hotel in near Liverpool. And my question was, for those people standing outside protesting, why are you protesting the people who have no control over the situation? Why don't you go down to Westminster? Those are the people in charge. If you're really concerned about what's happening in your community, surely somebody can put together, a fund to pay for a bus, go down to Suella Braverman's house. Maybe, I'm not suggesting you do that, but wouldn't it make more sense to go down to her house and protest outside and pressure her to do something about the situation? Or the whole
would we be having this problem if there were an extra 4 million houses? which is what we need. 4.3, according
you
to...
would, but
Yes,
Survey.
because we'll still have the Tories in charge, and they'll still be demonising a subset of the population for their own political gain, which is the only reason that they're at the moment. They know they're losing badly in the polls. They know they're losing the red wall up here in the north, and they're desperate. And they know that the one thing that connects with people is this idea that everything, all the fault of everything is these people coming and fleeing war, and people believe it from all. And also, just going back to a point Max just made about, why aren't you going after the people who are actually responsible for this? I felt that 20 years ago, because we used to have an annual tradition here in the UK called the May Day riots, where a bunch of predominantly white middle class kids went down to London and terrorized the staff at McDonald's because colorism bad. And I remember watching this on TV, and I never got involved in that because I thought, what are you doing? These kids are working minimum wage. You're terrifying them, smashing the windows. They're going to have to clear it up. The chief execs on holiday on a bloody island in the Bahamas, they're not there. So if you're going to make that protest work, make it I don't know, whatever the hell that is. Don't do it to the actual people who have no say, people who have no control over the situation. A really good point made by Max.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's look at the squirrel.
Yeah.
Squirrel. It's not us. We're in charge, but it's their fault.
But it's like with the Daily Mail and the Sun and the Telegraph and the Express. It's always about be angry with people who have no power. Never be angry with the people above, because it's always a distraction. Yeah. Always be angry. In the 90s, it was single mothers. In the 2000s, it was people on welfare, on benefits. Now it's refugees and asylum seekers. It's always be angry with people who have, in many cases, literally nothing. They arrive with the coats on their clothes on their back, and that's all they have. They have no power. They have no money. They have no influence. But you have to be angry with them, not the people who actually have put you in a situation where you can't afford to buy a house or rent a house or pay your bills. Don't be angry with them people. No, be angry with somebody who has literally no bloody power.
I'm aware that we've overrun, and you're absolutely right in what you're saying, Max. I will say this as well. There was a report in the newspaper this week stating that part of the reason that we were told to go back into work was because some very rich landowners and owners of property were terrified that they're about to lose out because people weren't going into the office, and that therefore their property prices were going to plummet. And I'm going, we've got a housing shortage. All those offices could have been turned into flats. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying you do it overnight, but we've got a housing crisis, and it's fairly easy.
It's easier than building from scratch, isn't it?
But yes, we can definitely argue. But at the end of the day, they're the ones that they were listened to. It wasn't our public safety. It wasn't anything else. It was the landowners. And again, you're going, and this ties in with the property development. Part of the reason we're not building property development is what would happen if we built, let's say we built in a year 4 million houses. What would that do to mortgages and the price of homes? It would knacker it.
I'd be knackered as well, mate. I'd need a good night's sleep after all that work. Oh, no, you mean me as a country? I thought you talking about us three.
We're a bit special.
I always love
I'm not sure that special.
I wouldn't live in those houses. But...
Speak for yourself. I've been all of them.
Oh, yeah, you have experience. But...
I can build anything now.
I'm better at knocking down walls than putting them up, so I can do the demolition stuff. On that note, we are out. What a brilliant show! Thank you so much, everyone.
So apologies for the the bugs in the system, but we eventually got there in the end. Thanks so much, Graham, for coming on. It'd be great to have you on again sometime.
I was at the end of Naked Gun, wasn't it? Where they just paused. I'd love to come on again. I wanted to come on last week when you were doing the conspiracy theories. But next time.
Cool. Thanks.
There's always more show. Bye, everyone.
Bye.